My name is Danielle Atwood. I'm 32 years old. Last Sunday, my mother-in-law slid a manila envelope across the dinner table, looked directly at my husband, and said, "I think you need to see this." Inside that envelope was a DNA test. She had secretly tested our 3-year-old daughter. She believed it would destroy my marriage. She believed it would expose me. What she didn't know was that I already knew about the test 2 weeks earlier. And what I did during those 2 weeks changed everything. But before that moment, before the dinner, before the envelope, you need to understand Patricia Atwood. Because nothing she did was ever impulsive. Everything was planned, measured, calculated. I met her 7 years ago. I was 25. Mark and I had been dating for 4 months. He brought me to his parents' house. A quiet Saturday in October. The door opened. And Patricia didn't hug me. She shook my hand. Firm. Precise. Evaluating. Like I wasn't a guest. Like I was evidence. The first 30 minutes were normal. Dinner. Small talk. His father telling stories. But then, Patricia shifted the conversation. Softly. Deliberately. "So Danielle, where did you grow up?" "Bridgeport. Small apartment. My mother was a nurse." "And your father?" I set my fork down. "He left when I was 6. She nodded. Touched her pearl earring. A small movement. But intentional. "That must have been difficult." She said it kindly. But not warmly. Like she was filing information. Not offering comfort. Later in the car, Mark said, "She liked you." I looked out the window. Did she? Because what I noticed that night was something else. Patricia needed to know where everything came from. The wine. The food. The people. Origins mattered to her. And I didn't realize it then. But one day, she would turn that same obsession on my daughter. We got married the next summer. Small ceremony. 40 guests. Simple. Perfect. Patricia wore cream. Not white. But close enough to send a message. I ignored it. Because I was focused on Mark. He was kind. Steady. Safe. And for a while, that was enough. We moved into a small house. 40 minutes away from Patricia. Close. But not too close. At least. That's what I thought. Because Patricia didn't believe in distance. She showed up unannounced. Twice a week. Used the spare key we gave her for emergencies. Rearranged things. Quietly. Systematically. My kitchen. My closets. My home. Once, she reorganized my entire linen cabinet. Left a note. Towels by color. Easier to find. I thanked her. Because that's what I did back then. I adjusted. I adapted. I made things easier. For everyone else. Her daughter, Courtney, was always around. Orbiting Patricia. Repeating her opinions. Echoing her judgments. Every visit ended the same way. Patricia would call Mark later. Comment on everything. Our house. Our choices. Our lives. And I stayed quiet. Because I was still learning the rules. Then came Thanksgiving. Patricia raised her glass. "To Mark," she said. She smiled. Looked around the table. Then looked at me. For exactly 1 second. Mark could have had anyone. The table laughed. I smiled. But something inside me made a note. Precise. Permanent. Because moments like that don't disappear. They accumulate. 2 years later, our daughter Lily was born. 7 pounds. Perfect. She came into the world screaming, which the nurse said was a good sign. Patricia held her in the hospital. She looks just like Mark, she said. And for a moment, I believed something had changed. That maybe this would bring us together. It didn't. 6 months later, Lily's hair began to change. Dark brown. To auburn. To copper. And by her first birthday, she had bright red curls. Beautiful. Striking. Unmistakable. From my side of the family. But Patricia didn't see beauty. She saw inconsistency. Interesting, she said one day, holding a curl between her fingers. Red hair. She looked at Mark. Then at me. Where does that come from? I explained. Genetics. Recessive traits. Family history. She smiled. Touched her pearl earring. Interesting. That word again. Not curious. Not innocent. Measured. Calculated. Because from that moment on, something shifted. Slowly. Quietly. Deliberately. The comments started. Not every day. But often enough. She's so unique looking. No one in our family has that coloring. Maybe there's Irish somewhere? Always light. Always casual. Always planted. Like seeds. And I noticed something else. People started watching me differently. His family. Friends. Even conversations changed. Subtle. But real. Because Patricia wasn't accusing me. Not directly. She was creating doubt. And letting it grow on its own. Then one day. Something happened. Something small. Something easy to ignore. If you weren't paying attention. The sippy cup. Lily's favorite one. I dropped her off at Patricia's house. Normal day. When I came back, it was gone. I threw it away, Patricia said. It looked worn. It wasn't worn. It was 3 weeks old. But I didn't argue. I didn't question it. Because I didn't understand yet. Not fully. But I saw something else that day. A small Ziploc bag. On the kitchen counter. Patricia moved quickly. Too quickly. Hid it. Just organizing, she said. And in the hallway. I saw it. A manila envelope. Sealed. Heavy. Important. At the time. It meant nothing. Just another detail. Just another moment. Until 2 weeks later. My phone rang. And everything finally made sense. The call came in the middle of my shift. Not dramatic. Not urgent. Just normal. And that's what made it dangerous. Because the moments that change everything don't announce themselves. They slip in quietly. Like any other day. I was in the therapy room. Cleaning hand grips. Resetting equipment. Between patients. My phone rang. Unknown number. Local. I almost ignored it. Almost. But something. A small instinct. Made me answer. Hello? Mrs. Atwood? Yes. This is Kelly from Geneva Labs. Pause. Neutral tone. Professional. I'm calling to confirm that we received a DNA sample under your daughter's name, Lily Atwood. Everything inside me went still. I didn't submit a sample, I said. Another pause. The submission was made under Patricia Atwood, she continued. She listed herself as the child's grandmother. My grip tightened around the phone. But our policy requires parental consent for testing minors. That word, consent, hit differently. Because now, this wasn't suspicion. This was real. We've placed the test on hold, she said. Would you like to approve or cancel? There are moments in life where everything slows down. Where your brain doesn't panic. It calculates. This was one of those moments. Cancel it, I said. My voice didn't shake. It never does when it matters. Understood, she replied. We'll flag any future submissions requiring your authorization. Thank you. I hung up. And for 4 seconds? I didn't move. Didn't think. Didn't breathe. Then everything connected. The comments. The questions. The sippy cup. The Ziploc bag. The envelope. It wasn't curiosity. It wasn't concern. It was a test. A secret test. Designed to prove something. To expose something. To destroy something. Me. I sat down slowly. Looked at the wall chart in front of me. Muscle diagrams. Latin words. Familiar. Grounding. Because when something feels unstable, you find something that isn't. Then I did what I always do. I documented. Not emotionally. Logically. Because logic wins later. Emotion doesn't. I opened my phone. Called a lawyer. Same day. No delay. Because I wasn't going to react. I was going to prepare. Her name was Rachel. Family law. Direct. Sharp. The kind of person who doesn't waste time. I told her everything. From the comments to the lab call. She didn't interrupt. Didn't react. Just listened. And when I finished, she leaned back slightly. What she did is illegal. Simple. Clear. Final. A grandparent cannot authorize genetic testing on a minor without parental consent. Full stop. No gray area. No loopholes. Depending on how she submitted it, Rachel continued. This could also involve fraud. I didn't feel shock. Or anger. Just confirmation. Because now, this wasn't personal. It was legal. Structured. Documentable. Do not confront her, Rachel said. I looked at her. Why not? Because she's not done yet. That mattered. If you confront her now, she continued, she'll apologize. She'll minimize it. She'll keep it inside the family. And nothing will change. I knew she was right. Because I had seen that pattern before. Over and over again. And if you want this to stop, she added. You let her finish. That sentence changed everything. Because now, this wasn't about reacting. It was about timing. Strategy. Control. What do? I asked. You wait. I paid the consultation fee. Walked out of that office. With something I didn't have before. Clarity. And a plan. That night, I didn't tell Mark. Not because I didn't trust him. Because I understood him. He would call her. She would cry. Apologize. And everything would disappear. Again. And I was done with things disappearing. So I stayed quiet. But not passive. I called the lab back. Confirmed cancellation. Requested a flag on Lily's name. No testing without me. Then I went home. Picked up Lily. She ran into my arms. Red curls bouncing. Laughing. Unaware. Safe. And in that moment, I made a decision. No one touches her life. Without my permission. No one. That night, after she fell asleep, I opened my laptop. Started researching. DNA testing laws. Consent. Privacy. Everything. Because knowledge is protection. Then something else occurred to me. Something bigger. Because Patricia didn't just want answers. She wanted proof. And people like her don't rely on one method. They build layers. So I checked something else. Consumer DNA platforms. The kind people use for ancestry. Because those don't always require strict verification. And that's where things got interesting. I created an account. Ran through the process. Learned how it worked. And realized something important. These platforms don't just test paternity. They connect family trees. Automatically. Which means, if Patricia tested Lily there too, it wouldn't just confirm a father. It would reveal relatives. Hidden ones. Unknown ones. And suddenly, this wasn't just about what she was trying to prove. It was about what she might accidentally expose. I opened Patricia's social media. Scrolled. Looked for patterns. Found one. An article she had engaged with. DNA testing. Family connections. Very interesting, she had commented. Of course she did. I took a screenshot. Saved it. Created a folder. Documentation. Because now, this wasn't a situation. It was a case. And cases are built. Piece by piece. Quietly. Over time. I opened my notebook. The one I used for patterns. Dates. Observations. Behavior. And I added a new entry. April 14th, DNA test submitted without consent. Then I closed it. Turned off the light. Lay in bed. Next to my husband. Who had no idea what was coming. And for the next few days, I did nothing. On the surface, I worked. Cooked. Laughed. Played with Lily. Everything looked normal. But underneath, everything was moving. Because I wasn't waiting. I was positioning. And Patricia? She was still building her moment. She thought she was in control. She thought she was preparing something that would destroy me. What she didn't realize was that she had already made her first mistake. Because she assumed I wouldn't see it coming. She was wrong. And I had 2 weeks to make sure she would regret it. The next 2 weeks looked completely normal. That was the point. I didn't confront Patricia. I didn't hint. I didn't react. Because reaction is what people like her expect. And when you don't react, they get comfortable. Careless. Predictable. That's where the truth lives. In patterns. And Patricia had very clear patterns. She didn't rush. She built. Slowly. Carefully. Like she was assembling something. A moment. An outcome. A reveal. And I knew exactly what that reveal was going to be. Dinner. Public. Controlled. Where she could present her evidence. In front of Mark. And make it impossible for me to respond without emotion. That's how she worked. Not loud. Strategic. So I let her build it. While I built something else. Because the moment I understood what she was doing, I also understood something more important. People who look for truth sometimes expose their own. I went back to the platforms I researched. The DNA services. The family mapping systems. The connection trees. Because Patricia wasn't just testing Lily. She was looking for confirmation. Which meant she was expecting a certain result. And expectations come from belief. So I asked myself one question. What does Patricia believe? Not what she says. Not what she hints at. What she actually believes. And once I framed it like that, everything shifted. Because Patricia didn't just doubt me. She doubted Lily's origin. Which meant she believed Lily wasn't Mark's. And if she believed that strongly, she had been thinking about it for a long time. Not weeks. Not months. Years. That kind of belief doesn't appear suddenly. It builds. From somewhere. So I looked at the only place it could come from. Her. Not me. Not Lily. Her. Because when someone questions lineage, they're usually thinking about their own. I started digging. Quietly. Not through confrontation. Through records. Public data. Family history. And something showed up. Not obvious. Not loud. But consistent. A gap. A small one. In Mark's family timeline. Between ages 19 and 22. 3 years. Unaccounted for. No photos. No records. No mentions. And for a family like Patricia's? That doesn't happen. Everything was documented. Everything was curated. Except those 3 years. I found an old address. Different city. Small town. Temporary residence. I traced it. Slowly. Carefully. And that's when I found it. A name. Not in the family tree. Not in any official record connected to Mark. But connected to Patricia. Indirectly. A birth record. Sealed. But referenced. Dated. 3 years before Mark was born. I sat back. Looked at the screen. And everything clicked. Because now, this wasn't about me. It never was. It was about her. A secret. Hidden. Buried. Protected for decades. And suddenly, her behavior made sense. The obsession with origin. The need to verify. The control. The narrative. Because people who hide something look for it in others. I didn't jump to conclusions. I confirmed. Slowly. Through additional records. Connections. And finally, one piece of evidence. A name. Linked to that same birth record. Now an adult. Living 2 states away. Same last name. Different life. Disconnected. But real. Patricia had another child. Before Mark. And no one knew. Not Mark. Not his father. No one. Except her. I leaned back in my chair. Hands still. Mind clear. Because now, everything had changed. This wasn't defense anymore. This was leverage. Not to destroy. To reveal. Because truth doesn't need force. It just needs timing. And Patricia was about to give me the perfect moment. 3 days later. Mark mentioned dinner. Mom wants us over Sunday, he said. Casual. Normal. Like it always was. But I knew. This wasn't normal. This was it. Her moment. The reveal she had been building toward. The envelope. The test. The accusation. All of it. And for the first time. I wasn't walking into her setup. I was walking into mine. Sunday came. I dressed simply. Neutral. Controlled. Because this wasn't emotional. This was precise. Lily stayed with a sitter. Of course she did. Patricia didn't want her there. Because this wasn't about Lily. This was about me. We arrived at 6:58 p.m. On time. Not early. Not late. Because timing matters. Patricia opened the door. Smile perfect. Eyes sharp. Prepared. Danielle, she said. Warm. Polished. Like nothing had ever been wrong. Dinner was normal. Too normal. Conversation flowed. Mark's father talked about work. Courtney laughed too loudly. Patricia poured wine. Watched everything. Measured everything. And then. Right on schedule. It happened. She stood up. Walked to the side table. Picked up a manila envelope. Heavy. Sealed. Familiar. She walked back. Placed it in front of Mark. And said the words. She had been waiting weeks to say. I think you need to see this. The room went quiet. Controlled. Anticipating. Mark looked at her. Confused. Then at me. Then back at the envelope. And in that moment? I didn't panic. I didn't react. Because I already knew what was inside. What mattered was what was about to come out. The envelope sat in front of Mark. Untouched. Heavy. Waiting. And for a moment? No one moved. Because this was the moment Patricia had built. Carefully. Deliberately. Every comment. Every question. Every seed of doubt. Led here. Go ahead, she said softly. Encouraging. Controlled. Mark looked at her. Then at me. Confused. Uncertain. Because he didn't know what he was about to step into. But I did. He opened the envelope. Slowly. Paper sliding against paper. A sound that felt louder than it should have. He pulled out the document. Looked at it. Brows tightening. Reading. Once. Then again. The room held its breath. This is as a DNA test, he said. Patricia nodded. Yes. Simple. Certain. And, he asked. She leaned forward slightly. Like she was guiding him. Read the results. He did. Silence stretched. Then. His expression shifted. Not anger. Not shock. Something else. Confusion. Probability of paternity. 99.99%, he read. He looked up. At her. Then at me. I don't understand. And that. That was the moment everything broke. Not for me. For her. Because this wasn't the outcome she expected. Not even close. Patricia blinked. Once. Twice. That's not possible, she said. But it was. Because I made sure it would be. 2 weeks earlier. After that phone call. I didn't just cancel her test. I ran my own. Through a verified lab. Documented. Legal. Accurate. And I had the results. Before she ever printed hers. Because if she was going to create a moment, I was going to control it. You tested her without consent, I said calmly. Not loud. Not emotional. Just clear. I corrected that. Mark turned toward me. You knew about this? Yes. When? 2 weeks ago. Silence. Because now. This wasn't just about the test. It was about intention. And Patricia had nowhere to hide. You went behind our backs, I continued. You tested a child without permission. That's not concern. That's control. Patricia straightened. Trying to recover. You're overreacting, she said quickly. I just wanted clarity. No, I said. You wanted proof. That word landed. Because it was the truth. Raw. Unfiltered. And truth. Is hard to argue with. You believed she wasn't Mark's, I said. Enough to act on it. She didn't answer. Because she couldn't. And that's when I did something she didn't expect. I reached into my bag. Pulled out a second envelope. Placed it on the table. Same color. Same weight. Different truth. What's that? Mark asked. Context, I said. I slid it toward him. He opened it. Faster this time. Less hesitation. More urgency. Inside. Documents. Records. Connections. A story. One Patricia had spent decades hiding. He read the first page. Then the second. Then stopped. Looked up slowly. At his mother. What is this? Her face changed. Not gradually. Instantly. Because now. She understood. This wasn't about me anymore. It was about her. You should tell him, I said quietly. I think he deserves that. Silence. Heavy. Final. Because secrets don't survive exposure. They're not relevant, she said. Too quickly. Too sharply. They are, I replied. Especially when you're questioning someone else's family. Mark's voice dropped. Low. Controlled. What is this, Mom? She didn't answer. Couldn't. Because there was no version of this. That worked in her favor. You had another child, I said. Simple. Direct. Irreversible. Before Mark. The room froze. Time stretched. Because that sentence changed everything. Courtney looked at her. Confused. What? Mark didn't move. Didn't blink. Didn't speak. Because sometimes shock isn't loud. It's still. Absolute. You hid it, I continued. For over 30 years. And now you're questioning my daughter's identity? Her hand moved to her pearl earring. Instinct. Habit. But this time. It didn't steady her. It exposed her. You don't understand, she said. Finally. Voice thinner now. Less controlled. It was complicated. No, I said. It was a choice. Because that's what it always comes down to. Choice. Mark stood up. Slowly. Like the ground had shifted beneath him. You lied to me, he said. Not angry. Not yelling. Just clear. And clarity is louder than anything. For my entire life. She reached for him. He stepped back. Small movement. But final. And in that moment? Everything reversed. The control. The narrative. The power. Gone. Because she built her position. On something fragile. Secrecy. And secrecy doesn't survive light. No one spoke for a long time. Because there was nothing left to say. The truth was already there. Complete. Unavoidable. I stood up. Not dramatically. Not emotionally. Just done. Because this was never about winning. It was about ending something. A pattern. A dynamic. A quiet, constant pressure. That had existed since the day I met her. Danielle, Mark said. I looked at him. Calm. Steady. I didn't want this, I said. But I'm not going to let anyone question my daughter. Not ever. He nodded slowly. Because he understood. Now. Finally. I picked up my bag. Walked toward the door. No one stopped me. No one followed. Because some moments don't need closure. They are closure. Outside. The air was cool. Still. Real. I stood there for a second. Not to think. Not to process. Just to feel it. The absence of something. Something I had carried for years. Gone. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is stop playing a game someone else created. And walk away. Without asking permission. Without looking back. Because once the truth is out, you don't need anything else.